Blessings, sisters. Today is Monday, October 23rd. We're actually again focusing on the energies of Pluto because anytime a, a major planet like that comes back direct, I think we have the opportunity to really work through its medicine. So we touched briefly on it last week. My plan was to really discuss what has transitioned in our life because it's so much to take in. If we look at 2023 as a whole, spiritual number 7, meaning that it's really about what's in our spiritual path, what are we opening up to, what things are we letting go that we no longer see as truths. It's every retrograde has potent medicine, and Pluto's is one of, to me, the most beautiful, because it's that cycle of death, of rebirth, of growth, of transformation, and over again. So we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. And I'd say, of course, having your journal handy is amazing, because I suspect the meditation will be more like a reflection of looking back at certain dates and thinking about where you were and where you are now. And then, of course, I will invite in Hades. Most of you know, I always just prefer the Greek names. I feel like they're the closest to what the Atlantean names would be, over the Roman names. And Pluto is the Roman name. Hades is the Greek name. And in some ways, we would have Anubis or Osiris as the Egyptian counterpart to Hades, depending, because those are both lords of the underworld in the Egyptian pantheon. So just cluing in, Michelle and I had a wonderful discussion, some of it really about a lot of world events which remain very relevant. If we look at where this eclipse has taken us, really the week leading into the eclipse is when there was the false flag of the Hamas terrorists attacking Israel. For those of us that have bigger awareness, what we should be able to see is that was used as a way, as an excuse to attack, in the same way that the Americans allowed Pearl Harbor to be attacked, because that would then give them reason to go full out on Japan. So if you know the history of that, you know that they heard the transmissions. They decided to let innocent people die in that bombing so they would have an excuse to go to war. It's very similar with Hamas, which most likely is a terrorist organization that is created by the Americans. And I don't say American people. Anytime I'm saying this, let's talk about it's the governments, right? So the American government creates it in conjunction with the Israeli government. And then you know that they're going to attack, and potentially you might even sell them weapons to do so. You know, you can hear the chatter, you know what's going to happen. You think, perfect, because once they do that and we create false narratives around it, which now we understand that the 20 or 40 beheaded babies that were reported, which was immediately retracted the next day because it wasn't true, did enough damage, brought out the emotion, which is the loosh, which is what negative entities feed off from us, right? They're waiting for these big expressions and outpourings of our emotions so that they can siphon it from us and in some ways grow stronger. They create that false flag. Then they use it as a way to totally demolish not only a city or an area, but do untold devastation. So I spoke with Michelle about a very unfortunate video that I saw this morning. I do have that kind of stomach that I can stomach it, but I won't go into great detail, but only to let you know that actually what is happening in the Gaza Strip with all the bombing, that in itself is decapitating people, and that is real. That is not a made up story. So what we're seeing playing out is this dichotomy of light and darkness. So in one way, the darkness is in front of our face, and it's so disgusting and inhumane that any of us in this day and age could look at another version of us, no matter the color of our skin, the flag that we are represented by through governments, the food that we eat, whatever it is that perceivably makes us different is a reason for them to be treated as other. And so the common thing you're going to hear about the Palestinians is that they are animals, they are garbage, they're below human standard. And so when they're killed and their children are killed, one of the most upsetting things to me is seeing videos of others celebrating these deaths. And so again, we have Pluto has come, October 10th, exactly when all of this was starting. Pluto comes back direct, and he is a planet of death and rebirth and transformation. What is he showing us? He's showing us the death of separation. Because on the one hand, while we're all terribly upset and destroyed by what's happening, we're also cracking open in more and more ways. And for me on Instagram, 90% of what I am seeing in terms of the comments is an outpouring of love, and people that feel like I do, that have a hard time falling asleep at night because I'm literally thinking about all those parents who have lost their kids, or the kids who are now orphaned. And again, if you know deeper stories, what the US government will do, and other Black ops governments like that, is at the end of it, when they're finished destroying everything they want to destroy, then they will go in and they will take those children and they will sell them into sex slavery, or even, if you can imagine, even doing more horrible things than that to them. So it's not a situation that will be resolved quickly. Being in Egypt, I'm right next door to this. Having a great conversation with Maria has really shown me that one of the reasons why I was guided to go there during this, basically a Holocaust, genocide, is for me to really do the kind of work that I love doing, which is to hold space, to anchor in light, to help awaken people into their fullest power. So the darkness and the light is amping up. We can't say that our world is more evil than it used to be, because this is what we've been grappling with since the fall of Atlantis. And whatever the accurate amount of years is, and it can get very lost, the fall of Atlantis is really somewhere between 3,000 years ago and 10,000 years ago. I prefer to go with the 10,000 year mark. So that's where we're going to be in my reality so far, until I learn otherwise. But up to that fall, there's a fallout that happens before. Things don't change in Atlantis in 100 years or 300 years. Like our own patterns right now, it takes thousands of years to enslave, corrupt, make very powerful beings. If for those of us that have had past or other lifetimes in Atlantis, we are incredible beings at that time, because we know ourselves, we know our light, we understand that we are God's children, we understand the galactic community. We've learned a lot from our Star Nation brothers and sisters in terms of technology. We understand crystals. We understand that Earth herself is a living, breathing goddess that we are allowed to be interacting with. And so we have this incredible knowledge. And when the Atlanteans start to slip, and in some ways it almost starts, there's two methods that it goes through, and we're going to get into this a lot next week. But either they become coerced by all that glitters is gold, right? And this is what celebrities do now. Celebrities in terms of singers, actors, major sports stars, they get sold this contract that if you sell us your soul, and remember, if you're making a soul contract, this is not just for one lifetime. If you actually sell your soul, I don't know how long it's going to take to recover it, but these people sell their soul for fame, for power, for wealth, for glory, right? And the Beyoncés of the world are really high up there in what they've sold into. And then they use that. They're basically what the Greeks would have saw as gods. So our modern day gods are celebrity and celebrity worship, and buying their makeup lines and their clothing lines and their vodka lines and all these things that they sell us. But the Atlanteans, some of the Atlanteans did that willfully, because they had a lust for more power. Even though they're perfectly balanced exactly as is, almost a little voice comes in and says, oh, but you could have more. You could have more than everybody else. And it's just part of the human condition, even as an Atlantean, to be tempted. And so it just starts as a very slow leak. And then eventually it becomes heavier and heavier until more people do that. But then we have also what is known as the spiritual rape of the Atlanteans by a mixed group of beings, by the Meldekians, the Martians, some of the Orions, reptilians, and AI, who was known as a Luciferian or satanic energy. And so those guys come into Atlantis and they also infiltrate it. And the way I've seen it through some of my readings is for some Atlanteans, it happened in the snap of a finger. So they are on the team light, we'll call it, and they're going into battle to make one final push, basically to save not only Atlantis itself, but the golden age of Earth. And when they go into that battle, it's like a dark cloud or energy just comes through. And once it passes them, instantly their soul shrinks. It doesn't get completely eliminated. It shrinks and is overpowered by darkness, so almost like suffocating it. And then those same soldiers that were, say, moving forward to attack now instantly turn around and start attacking their comrades they were just walking with or flying with. So there's a very complex story. The reason we're getting into it is A, because of Pluto, and B, because of Halloween/Samhain is coming. And that is actually the big marker for Atlantis. So Pluto is going to continue to play a massive role throughout the next, who knows, 20-year period. Said that he's going to be in Aquarius for about 20 years, helping to usher in, this new golden age. And one of the best things we can do is practice non-attachment, but also continue to evolve our own rituals and commitments so that we become impervious to outside influence. And it's not going to be easy, because between what we're seeing in this genocide, what we know, how many people are suffering, not only through inflation and carbon taxes and loss of jobs and losing family members to cancer rates, which are now up 200,000% globally since the introduction of the COVID jabs. We got a lot going on, and plus staged/natural disasters. So this is why we continue to come together, to work at our own peace, to work on our own enlightenment, and to figure it out. The card I pulled yesterday for yesterday's journey through chem class was really about getting on your practices. They don't have to look the same for any of us, but if you can commit to 5 to 10 minutes a day of either just breathing or connecting to your Holy Spirit for its own wisdom, meaning what guidance do you have for me today? What should I do in regards to, A, B, or C? Just doing that and connecting to your own light will do more for us than 50 rituals a day, because that can get overwhelming and it can make us pull out. So a good advice, okay, which would take, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes per day if you did it like this. A, ground and protect yourself. B, if you have Reiki or another modality, practice self-healing. Get through your chakra system, do some self-healing so that you are in alignment. And then either pull a card or channel a message. If you do those things in about 20 minutes and send some prayers to our world, you are doing more for Earth than the majority of most beings on it. So let's get into some more of Pluto's energies. And just know that this community remains here for you, because we're all going to go through ups and downs over the next while. And just find ways to be there for one another, to love one another, to support one another. And we all have things that annoy us or push our buttons. But how much more compassionate can we be? Can we just tune into the messages of the soul, move past that little aggravating part of us that is very human, and recognize that we all have grand purpose? And your grand purpose might be different. I find a lot of women right now have shame about being a stay-at-home mom. But man, if your calling is just to raise your children in the most beautiful and loving way, that is an incredible calling. Never have shame, and never have shame if it's the opposite. If you're don't have children, maybe aren't meant to have children or don't want children, then your purpose is different and it's just as beautiful. So a little bit about that. Let's let's hear about our beloved Hades. So known as the Lord of the Underworld, Hades slash Pluto's retrograde hits us on a psychic level. So that's already a very beautiful thing, not necessarily energetic. We don't feel exhausted, maybe not so much in our mental body, but psychically, energetically, spiritually, his lessons are there. Working on the deepest levels of our being. So nothing surface. A lot of times it's going to be what our inner fears are, what that inner dialogue has been, how we're processing a lot of the information that's coming through in our lifetime. So now his retrograde began on May 1st, earlier this year, and emerging on October 10th. So let's just put a little note there. So maybe in your journals, you're writing May 1st to October 10th. This is going to be very interesting, right? He guides us to look over the transformations of the past, what has fallen away, what has risen, and what is still lingering in the shadows. We're going to come back to those, but maybe let's just write that down. So we have transformations of the past. And to me, that would be prior to May 1st. So his last time he stationed direct would have been similar. It would have been somewhere in October of last year, most likely October, maybe early November. He stationed direct. He was direct all the way until May 1st before he went back into the underworld. Because he's Lord of the Underworld, understand that Pluto probably actually prefers to be in his retrograde cycle, because that's a natural part for him. It's like those of you that are former mermaids, you prefer to be in the water because it's more your home than land. So transformations of the past. And we will probably bookend this going back to 2020, because that's a great marker for us into when collectively our lives all began to change. What has fallen away? That we're going to really think about. This is going to be since May 1st. What has fallen away? And maybe let's just focus on that right now. Hopefully there's some fear that has fallen away and doubt. And you can look at it at 4 levels. You can look at everything at 4 levels. What has fallen away physically? Is there any injuries, illnesses, imbalances that you notice actually you're no longer dealing with? You know, when I brought up the fear, that's our emotional body. Mentally, for some of us, our clarity has actually fallen away, hasn't it, since that time? But mentally, are there things that you let go of that used to really stress you out? Have you employed new methods that have allowed you to be more grounded, more focused? I'd say less distracted in general. And then spiritually, has anything fallen away? I can say with all honesty that since I began my awakening 10 years ago, that while I've opened up to a lot of things, some things I think were almost built as a deception as well. And so let's just say in 2020, I was very much invested in the Q movement. And now I practice non-attachment with it. If it's true, awesome. I love it. If it's not true, it's okay because I'm not attached to it. It's the same thing with a lot of different star blogs that you're going to read. There is some incredible things that they say Are they true? I'm not sure. Depends how clear and accurate that channel is. That's why it's nice to have the practice with ourselves that's really about knowing yourself and trusting your guidance from your Holy Spirit, because it's going to be true for you. So that's a reflection of what has fallen away. Let's go to question number 1. Transformations from the past between that 2020 and say May 1st of this year. What can you really notice about yourself? How has Pluto been working with you in those cycles of death and rebirth? And also being proud of your transformations. Many of us have, in some ways, suffered greatly to come into the path that we're now in. So we want to celebrate our rises and our falls, because they've allowed us to form this community that holds space wonderfully for each other, and in effect does so for our world. We've created so much love and magic in this group over a 3-year period. And it's just a beautiful thing to embody, sisters. Okay, let's come to question number 3. Even more fun. What has risen for you? And this again is going to be from May 10th. So coming through the spring, all the way through the summer, into the early fall, what have you noticed has increased, has expanded, has been brought into your awareness? Okay. And then the last question is, what is still lingering in the shadows? So to me, that would feel like things that feel incomplete, unknown. They kind of like you feel like this nudging in your consciousness, but you don't quite know what is going to come of it. Um, for me, it's like on my long to-do list or look into researching list. So things that are in the shadows for me um, is a greater awareness of the truth of our world's history. What propaganda do I still recite? If we think about false flags in general, we have to go back to one of the biggest ones in our modern history, which is 9/11. Before that, different wars being started for erroneous reasons. The sinking of the Titanic, again, talking about letting events happen. It is said that that captain actually knew exactly where the icebergs were and purposely went full speed ahead to basically kill people that would oppose the Federal Reserve. So when more truths come out, and to me, Pluto does represent a lot of truth, right? Um, all these things that pulled on our heartstrings that are told over and over again through our collective, through the history, through monuments, through movies. They're ways to keep us in an emotional state. Again, I mentioned Deluge before. If you're in a movie, say a sold out movie theater, I don't know how many that seats anymore, but say 100 to 200 people, and 200 people are watching the Titanic sink, and I'll never let you go, Jack, and all this stuff. And then she lets him go. There's this collective, oh, guess what? Our energy is being siphoned off from that. And they do it again and again and again by telling us the same stories or rewriting the stories into a new generation so they can get us to react again. So just thinking what's lingering in the shadows for you. Taking some breaths as we go through this. Now, you can still reflect. I'm just going to read a little bit more. So Pluto's retrograde did dip into Aquarius this year. And it says that it's extra significant. But then once June 11th came, it went back into Capricorn. And so it's kind of actually what Michelle had mentioned. It's like we get to go forward a little bit and see what the new energies will be when Pluto stations in Aquarius for about a 20-year cycle. But right now we're like going forward and then back. So we're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and we're coming back into Capricorn. When Pluto actually stays in Aquarius, it is truly the dawning of a new era. It will bring more power to us and technology with a greater focus on community and humanitarianism and spiritual advancement. That is what we're seeing right now. So we're seeing the dichotomy of who feels for their fellow man, knows that we are one, is a true humanitarian, and who still sees us as separate, divided, and different, right? And that way they create indifference. But spiritual advancement. So let's just say around 2025, 2024, 2025, Pluto, that's it. Now he's in Aquarius for 20 years. Spiritually, for a 20-year period, what could that mean? You think about how much you have awoken in particular since 2020. And if you want to go back to your original awakening from then too, but just reflect on how much you have truly learned and unlearned, grown, seen, and believe in. Now we have a few members of our group that have been very spiritually connected their whole life. Even if they shut it down for a period, they grew up knowing that things existed outside of our material world. If you're like me, for the majority, you didn't have the support to continue to believe that. So even though I was intrigued by reincarnation around the age of 8, I didn't actually be able to ground into it until I was 33, because there was just no information. And my age is that we didn't really get the internet until late in my teens, early adulthood. And access to information is not what it is now. So Pluto in Aquarius has a light side, of course, but it also has a dark side. And that dark side is playing out as we're speaking. It can create more deaths, more rebirths, and deep, deep, deep transformation. Pluto is the process of everything burning and the rise that comes when the ashes are ready to be transformed. So as difficult as what I'm about to say is, let us remember that everybody on the planet, including the Palestinians that are dying in the thousands per week, their sole agreement is that they would make such a life, such a sacrifice as to help awaken the collective. And it is through that rubble and through their ashes that they will be reborn. And the world they're going to be reborn into is one that they helped fashion, which is going to be one of light and unity. So we can't just wash it away and be like, oh, it's okay because their souls are okay. In that way, yes, it's okay. Their souls will never be harmed. But on the human level, it's one of the most barbaric things I've witnessed with these eyes in this body. Lots of death. Pluto is bringing the death. The other thing you might not be aware of that I was speaking about earlier with Michelle is that Afghanistan itself, which is a neighbor to that area of Israel, Palestine, has gone under 4 major earthquakes that have killed thousands upon thousands of people. So there is a lot of death. We still have mudslides, hurricanes, fires. We have a lot happening. There is a mass amount of people ascending from our planet right now because their mission has been complete. And if we can collectively put our hands on our heart and take a breath and just say, thank you, thank you, thank you, brothers and sisters, for completing your mission and reminding us the period that we're in, which is a great and grand awakening. So coming out of this retrograde, how have we changed and evolved? How have we rebirthed ourselves? Let's focus on that. again, from May to October, maybe what are 3 ways you've really changed? And what transformations have you moved through? A little bit, maybe a little bit of a repeat from our previous questions, but I know that each of us is not who we were when we started this year or when we started Pluto's retrograde. Most of us have shifted into more magic, more closeness with our gifts, um, more forgiveness. I've seen a lot of you express more understanding that everything is playing out exactly as it's supposed to. And it's a reminder because Pluto is so removed from us, it's subtle, the shifts. You don't feel them until you actually are months into it, and then you notice that you've changed. So it's like losing weight. Day by day you can't notice, but 3 months later when you go to maybe try on a piece of clothing you haven't worn for a while and it fits, then you know that you're making progress. It's similar with Pluto. You know it when you're no longer focused, I'd say, in some ways on the negative. If you're someone like me that has previously had a lot of lack mentality and fear, and you just notice you're not there anymore, for the most part, for myself, working with Green Tara has provided one of the biggest transformations of my journey so far. And as soon as I hear programming come in that makes me think of lack, tare tutare ture soha. Tare tutare ture soha. Tare tutare ture soha. So it's a really beautiful medicine that Pluto delivers to us because it's not shocking and strong all in one way. It's also like the TRS spray I'm taking right now to detox from metals. It happens little by little, day by day. Now, finally, in 2024, November of 2024, Pluto will finish its journey completely in Capricorn. It no longer will bounce between Capricorn and Aquarius. And once we come into that November 2024, which are only a year away from, uh, Pluto will unlock the fullness of his new cycle, giving us the total picture of what it was like in its Capricorn journey. So presuming then that Pluto's Capricorn journey was about 20 years, for most of us, that's a significant portion of our adult life. And we're going to start really seeing some changes because then your lessons are going to be complete as they were from Capricorn. I would say in general, it would be a great idea to understand what Capricorn's energies are, and the type of lessons that it brings. My understanding of Capricorn, of course, is earth and groundedness, but I tend to think of Capricorns as stubborn, so stubborn that they get the job done, uh, able to see in many directions. Because it's a sea goat, I think of having clarity in the water, even when things are murky, but also being able to ascend to the highest peaks and mountains where you can get that eagle-eyed view. That's about what I know about Capricorn energy. There's probably a lot more to discover, but soon, within this next year, you're going to see the completion of the Pluto and Capricorn um, cycle within our own lives. So that means for those of us that have children too, they've only been living under that energy. So imagine what shifts for them as Pluto becomes regular in Aquarius energy. So just taking a breath. Let's just see if we can access our shadow side. Our shadow side is just less well known, right? It's not the side that we present to the world for the most part. Seeing yourself as both light and dark and having no judgment. What does your shadow side want to tell you today? very simply from my own shadow self. It says, do not be afraid of me. I help you realize your fears and where they have been holding you back. I'm at peace with my own love and wisdom, and I have much to share with you if you allow me to do so. And remember, because Pluto has its transformation cycles with us, it's actually really about owning and feeling our power, understanding that as natural as cycles are, we don't have to be victim to them. We can prepare and flow through them by the same spiritual principles that keep us in everything: non-attachment, doing the work, not bypassing things, diving deeper into certain branches that are calling for your attention. And so finally, let's just go back to a statement I might have mentioned last week. I can rebirth my life by, because now we're in the rebirth period. Now that he's back direct, this is a time between October of this year and somewhere around April, May of next year that you're going into a beautiful rebirth. Even though it's fall and winter, there's going to be part of you that is a full creation mode, that's decided to be more forgiving, maybe more independent, more wise. So just taking some breaths. Like I said, I knew today would be a little bit less of a meditation, more of a discussion, more of inner reflection. So those of you on the replay, I would encourage that you just sit in these frequencies for a little while and just see what else wants to come up. Of course, you know, I recommend being in a bath, really creating a safe space for yourself if you can, and talking to Pluto, talking to Hades. What else could we know or do? Now, in this class, we've worked with Pluto's retrograde many, many, many times. And I have a few meditations that are really wonderful to help you work through it. So I'm also in the replay going to attach a meditation that you can do should you miss out on that part of today's class and you're feeling a little wanting for meditation. I will include that so that you can journey if you want. There's two aspects I really love of Pluto. One of it was understanding your soul family and your connections in a mirrored reality. The other meditation that I seem to remember is going to Pluto and meeting some of its high priestesses or priestesses, which were kind of like ice queens, like Elsa, but receiving healing from them. So I'll see what's in my archives and what I can share with you. But as always, thank you. Next week, we're still in the energies of death and transformation. And really, you're going to be in those energies all throughout November, because November really is an awareness of our ancestors. It has that kind of mystical energy. At some point, we'll be entering Scorpio season. Be known that we're not in Scorpio season according to Vedic astrology and true astrology. We've probably just recently entered Libra season, actually. So Scorpio season will most likely start around November 19th or 20th. But those are those frequencies that bring up sacred memories and ancestry and deeper connections. And it's when the Pleiadians are very, very active with us. So you'll be having a few just self-recorded classes while I'm away in Egypt that are basically going to dealing with Palladian and ancestral energy. And I think it'll be a wonderful space for you to be in while I'm connecting with my own soul ancestry in Egypt. And then, to finish off our year in the Galactic Temples of Light in December, I'm sure I'll have a lot of new upgrades, but somehow we'll be integrating some Egyptian energies in there. But we'll also be working with more of the royal star energy, the solstice energy. Chiron will be coming direct. And basically, now through December, a lot of the bigger planets will be also stationing direct. Saturn, maybe Neptune soonish. So we'll be working through those medicines as well. But as always, I just want to say thank you. If you have any questions, I got about 2.5 weeks until I'm a little bit more radio silent. So please feel free to share in our group chat. I would encourage you to share in the Journey Through Chem, since that's what this container currently is for those that are actively in the GTL. And then let me know. Let me know if I can help you on your journey in any way over the next couple of weeks. And just sending a lot of love, many, many blessings. Ramati Maura. Golden Atlantean blessings always. Thank you.